Fearless. Provocative.
Straight talking. We will say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense.
Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Heartfelt and passionate.
Thought-provoking, provocative and controversial.
Fearless and truthful.
Welcome to The Pledge, the programme committed to straight talking and fearless debate. It's been another quiet week. A Prime Minister out, a new one in, a Labour leader nearly out but allowed to stay in, and despite calls to stay in, the UK's still out of the EU, that is. This week on the show, Rachel tells our new leader to hold firm, Nick's keeping it in the family, Michelle says a promise is a promise, and June's reminding us all of our misspent youth. But first, it's my turn. I am one of the nearly 130,000 people to have joined the Labour Party since the referendum. In my case, I have rejoined after a gap of nearly 20 years with the simple aim of getting rid of Jeremy Corbyn. And if I have to pay an extra £25 to vote him out, so be it. Now, I have no doubt Corbyn's supporters will accuse me of being a pathetic Blairite. But of course they have a problem given my track record of standing up to Blair publicly. My objection is not to Corbyn's politics. My objection is that he is a hopeless leader who completely fails to inspire his own MPs, potential Labour voters and the wider public. This was blatantly obvious in the referendum, where Corbyn must take some of the blame for the narrow vote to leave. I wouldn't let him run the local scout troop, let alone the country. And I suspect, along with millions of others, I would never vote Labour in a general election if he was still the leader.
Greg, so you say that he, first things first, I wouldn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn either, but so many people did. You say that he doesn't inspire people, but he did. It was something like 250,000 members voted for him. That is one of the largest mandates of any party leader.
I didn't say he didn't inspire certain members. I said he doesn't inspire the public, and he certainly doesn't inspire his MPs.
But he does inspire a lot of the public, and I think one of the problems that we've got now is people just don't seem to respect. You know, there's a huge amount of people that like him. One of my very own brothers, for example, thinks that he is amazing and wants him as the leader.
Is that the same brother who voted Brexit or not?
No, this is a brother that voted Remain, this particular brother. But there's a huge amount of people that do like him.
There are people in the Labour Party who do like him, but if you're the leader of the Labour Party, you've also got to be leader of the parliamentary Labour Party. Yeah. And if you can't lead the parliamentary Labour Party, you cannot be the leader.
But then surely there becomes a point when the PLP actually have to respect the fact, you know what, this is our leader and we're going to support him, we're going to have his back, we're going to help him to be better at his job.
They did that for 9 months and actually decided this guy isn't a leader. And I think they're right. I think he's probably a very nice guy. But he's not a leader. He's not someone... In the whole referendum campaign, we all knew he really believed in Brexit.
He did.
And he pretended that he believed in staying in. And because of it, he was hopeless. And that's what has provoked the current crisis in the Labour Party. But there are so many Labour... I mean, if he gets back on the ballot, and it's not certain he will, but if he gets back on the ballot and he wins again, I think you're seeing the split of the Labour Party, which probably should have happened several times in its history. But this time, I think you'll see a parliamentary Labour Party walk away from the leader elected by the membership.
Yeah, let's hope not. I want all this fighting to stop. I just want us to crack on with the job of creating certainty and some... Just get on with the job.
So does the Tory party. I mean, the Tory is going to be a one-party state unless the Labour Party can fix this and either unite or split into two parties, one a momentum-ruled Corbynista party, and the other a more sensible mainstream party. But, I mean, can we just talk a bit about how he performed yesterday at PMQs? You know, you all say he doesn't show any signs of leadership. Well, he didn't perform badly, and I loved his first compliment to David Cameron was so kind of on brand. It was like, well done, you got this guy out of Guantanamo Bay. And then he went off to some meeting which was recommitting to the Castros in Cuba. I mean, you know, you've got to hand it to the old boy.
Clearly he had a new script writer. And like you, Greg, I've been a lifelong Labour supporter. And I've rejoined for the same reason, to kick out Corbyn. I think the man...
Who would you like to see lead the Labour Party?
Well, I like Angela Eagle. I think she's for sure... I think the exciting thing about Angela Eagle is if her confidence matches up to her ability, I think she's going to be a really exciting leader.
Right.
Can I finish, please, Nick?
Go
Jeremy
ahead.
Corbyn is unelectable, and the whole point of having an opposition is that so that we can hold a government to account and one day be a government
that hasn't
ourselves.
been put to the test
We have
yet.
to look like a party. Yes, it has in the referendum.
The
man was
That wasn't a general
disqualified as a
election.
result of that.
No,
he
but
has to go.
But the local elections, when
Yes.
you should
He
be...
did quite
Yes.
well.
No, he didn't. You
He
should, at this stage in the government, you should be gaining an
Yes.
awful lot of seats, and
Yeah.
we gain.
And
They
What
gain
is the
nothing.
truth,
Nothing.
Nick? Come on, I'm waiting. The oracle.
The truth of the matter is, and I've elected you both on this before concerning the Brexit. You are just representing the inner London view.
That is not true.
You are not out there in
No
Sunderland.
way.
You are not out there in Bolton. You are not out there
And those
in Manchester.
people did not
hang
vote
on a
for
second.
Jeremy
Hang on a
Corbyn
second.
in the
Where
referendum.
the Labour vote collapsed in the last general election, where UKIP ran them a very close second in constituents up and down the north. Look, I don't quite know what he's got. And, Greg, you're right. He's utterly unelectable. But what you cannot dance away from, it's all very well, without being nasty, you are part of the media elite. You have absolutely no touchstone with blue-collar factory workers who have either lost their jobs...
planet are
no,
you
absolutely.
on?
And these are the people who are being attracted to whatever Corbyn's message is.
They're not.
Well, they are.
No, the people,
200 and something thousand?
The people who are
Yeah.
being
250,000.
the people who are being attracted to Corbyn's message are the PC do-gooder elite in Islington.
I don't think so.
That is
I
the
don't
people.
think so.
But
I
did
don't
you
think
know
so.
Hard-working, ordinary Labour voters are not attracted
But
to the
did you
Corbyn
see on
message, and that is
Facebook?
why we did so badly in the referendum. He is completely out of touch.
On Facebook, when Angela Eagle, so she set up her official page to launch, if you want her bid to...
It looks
for
like she's
leadership.
going,
Yeah, but when you actually look, and you've got, I think it's something like 44,000 comments or something, and which sounds awesome, but when you actually scroll through them, and there are lots, it's all in favour of Corbyn. It's
Because
people
it's
coming
all
in
the
Corbyn.
Momentum supporters. Oh, that's one thing. They're very well organised.
But
They're
the
mobilised.
hard left in the Labour Party, the hard left in this country, has
Shout
tried
the
to
loudest.
infiltrate the Labour Party.
Yes.
On a number of occasions. I remember them when I was a student coming in on mass to join the Labour Party, and that a few years later they left. There's always been a left part of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny story is, of course, how he got elected. If you listen to the thing that's been on radio
great
this
story,
week,
the
thing that's been
clue.
on radio this week, that basically he got elected by 8 of them sat around the room and they said, well, and McDonald said, well, I've done it twice, and Diane Abbott said, well, I did it last time, it better be his turn. And he's going to be the leader of the Labour Party. But I'm sure he's a nice guy. For all the people I know
I
like
don't
him.
think he
but
is.
that's not the point. The point is, our democracy requires us to have an effective opposition.
Yeah.
We haven't got one at the moment.
But it also requires us to listen to the will of the people as well.
But that's not the will of the people.
I
They
know,
won't
but-
vote for
Well,
him.
don't you
actually, that
just
didn't just
feel-
happen in the election of our new Prime Minister, did it?
But
No.
Because
don't you
she
feel
was
at the
elected by
moment that-
199 MPs, as against the 150,000
As
party
opposed to
membership.
150,000
And so
geriatrics
what
who are in the Conservative
What you're
Party.
saying is that the Labour Party should listen to the membership and ignore the MPs, and Greg thinks that the Labour
No, I'm
Party should
saying
listen
you've
to the
got
MPs
to-
and
Yeah, I
ignore
want
the
them to
membership.
listen to the members. I do,
No,
because
but
I
you
feel a
have
little bit...
got to, if you can't get the support
Yeah.
of enough of your MPs,
Yeah.
which he hasn't got,
Yeah.
you can't be the leader
But
of
isn't
the
that
Labour
an indictment
Party.
on them? If they can't get behind and support their boss, for want of a better
No,
word,
because
their
we
leader.
have a system of representative democracy. In other words, we elect people, which is why I so disagree with the referendum.
Of course.
We elect people. We ask you, you have got our vote, you've got our support. Go in, understand this, and make a rational decision.
Hold on. Maybe the MPs are actually out of step with their electorate.
They're
Because
not.
hold on. If you look at Angela Eagle, actually her local party is fully behind Jeremy Corbyn. So she's not actually representing
That's one
the views
MP.
of her...
That's
well, we could go
one.
through.
I think
any of
that's
that.
That's significant.
Maybe
it
you will
feeds
find
into what Michelle was saying
absolutely
about Facebook.
that actually it's the anti-Corbyn MPs who have to look to themselves.
No, but
that in many instances
but
they
if you
won't
look
be
at the
represent-
unions
Let me
now,
just finish
the
that. He
It's a
won't be
good point
representing the
Nick's
wishes
making.
of
They're
their
not
constituents.
representing
That's
their
not true.
They're
constituents.
not. They like Corbyn. I think it's fantastic watching you guys crawl and fight over all this. It's absolutely...
In the time it's taken the Labour Party
that's
to
great.
fail to even agree the mechanisms
I know.
to elect a new leader who refuses to go, the Tory Party
I know.
have got rid of one leader and almost in the process, as I'm speaking, of electing a whole new government. So well done, everybody.
The Tory Party
well done,
the Tory Party have always been very good at getting rid of people and getting in out of somebody else quickly. The Labour Party has notoriously been awful at it.
Awful at it.
Well, it's going to cause them a lot of problems.
On that note, may I be the first on the pledge to congratulate our new Foreign Secretary, our new Prime Minister, Theresa May, on her smooth transition from the Home Office to number 10. In Mrs May, the nation has a safe pair of heels, and the country can look forward to calmer waters after the storms and shipwrecks of these past few weeks. But already, the Greens, the Labour Party, such as it is, and the Lib Dems have all called for a snap election and put themselves on war footing, which puts me back into panic mode. Theresa May isn't the first person to have become Prime Minister without winning a general election to do so. In fact, she's the 14th. Yes, she is on record of accusing Gordon Brown, another PM who was crowned king without going to the country, of governing without a proper mandate. But that was before the Fixed-Term Parliament Act, dummies. Do I really need to spell it out? The last thing the country needs or wants is more campaigning, more hustings, more polling and more division. Let's all agree to have an election in 2020 and not a moment before.
Rachel. I'm a fan of Theresa May's, actually.
I'm sure she'll be delighted to hear that.
Yeah, she is. No, I'm sure she is.
She's waiting by the phone for your congratulatory call.
She is. I will be. I'll be calling tomorrow. As a Labour supporter, if that's our Tory leader, I feel comfortable with that. But I completely disagree with you because I think there is nothing like having the mandate of the electorate, of the people, not just the party membership, of the people, in terms of giving you confidence as a leader.
You think she's shown any lack of confidence over the past 24 hours?
It's too early to tell. It's too early to tell.
Don't forget she's been Home Office for 6 years or whatever it is.
That's not Prime Minister. I think it's too early to tell. And I think the difference is with everything we've got ahead of us, it's going to be a really tough time. And the minute we get into sort of really choppy waters, if she doesn't have a mandate from the people, that is not just in terms of common sense. That's not the time for her to call a general election. Her only possible problem won't be about the people. It will be about having a too slender majority in Parliament to do what she wants to do. Which is why she should go back. And as somebody who would not want the Tories to have an outright victory, she would probably get a much bigger majority. I think what I'm sensing, though, June, you really admit something, which is that what you really want is a general election to reverse the referendum result, and that's why you don't want a general election. Well, I would definitely want that anyway, but I think for her as a leader, it makes much more sense if she has the mandate of the British people, not just 190. That's your cover story, forgetting what you want. Not just 190 Tory MPs.
You can't even find a leader, let alone fight an election.
Well, I don't want it right now. Once we're sorted, give us a year. But you'll have Corbyn, by
the way. The great people of Great Britain have had enough of elections and referendums.
Says who?
No, you can. Says me, and I talk to them every single day on the radio show. They have had enough. Yeah. She's got enough time. I thought it was a masterful performance by both the outgoing and the incoming Prime Ministers this week. Faultless, absolutely faultless, except for the extraordinary amount that she offered in her speech outside number 10, where she talked about people with emotional health issues. I'll be there for you. Black people, people who've been misserved, black people who've been misserved by the justice system. By the way, I thought you were Home Secretary for the last 6 years, so surely you could have addressed that. Unemployed people, wherever else you might have looked. Boy, she's got a lot of promises out there. Let's hope she can hit all those.
Do you want to hear some of the things she said?
Which is why I think she should go and get the support from the public.
We will do everything we can to give you more control over your lives. When we take the big calls, we'll think not of the powerful, but you. When we pass new laws, we'll listen not to the mighty, but to you. When it comes to taxes, we'll prioritise not the wealthy, but you. When it comes to opportunity, we won't entrench the advantages of the fortunate few. We will do everything we can to help anybody, whatever your background, to go as far as your talents will take you.
interesting because in her first words, which will always be, her first mission statement, what I see from that is her reasoning for not going to the country. She's taking in the Ed Miliband agenda. She's taking on big business. She's looking at executive pay. She's looking at employees on boards. She's looking at the underprivileged.
And
it's
austerity.
very much saying this is government for the many, not by the few. The Notting Hill Tories.
That's what we want to hear,
Which is why, to
Which
sort
is
of calm
why
down
she
everybody,
needs to
it's going to be a broad
take it
church.
to the people, Rachel.
I
Let
would-
the people decide that.
I
do you
would
think?
take a bet she will have an election within 2 years.
Which would be smart to do.
And I think to say now, we don't want one now. I think
Yes,
she's dead
that
right.
I agree with you.
But I think she, at some stage,
Possibly.
she'll get.
But what will take her to that brink?
She'd have to. There's a fixed term
a majority of only.
parliament, right?
30.
She'll have to reverse the fixed term parliament.
Yes, you can.
Well, you can, but she'll have to get that
She'll
through
get
yes,
the-
as well.
she'll have to
Both
get the
houses.
Parliament to vote for that.
Yes, but the opposition are always going to vote for that. They have to.
they're always.
The opposition can't say, no, we'd like you to stay
As
in.
long as Corbyn's
Heck of it.
out.
So then she's devoting all her efforts, instead of voting us to Brexit or whatever, she's fighting and
No,
fighting
but
and
I
fighting
think
to repeal the
I think
Fixed
she'll
Term
find,
Act.
exactly
makes sense.
as you said, I think she'll find, as Cameron's found, a majority of 13 is quite small. You've only got to have 5 or 6 go the other way and you're in trouble. And I think she'll hold another election to get a bigger majority.
Exactly.
And she'll probably get it.
And she'll get it, which is why she should go to the people.
But I just want some stability now. I want some certainty. I want some stability. I want us to crack on.
I don't. I love
with
it.
the country.
You went
It's
out the
good
same
for
day
us.
twice.
Yeah,
It's
good for the
fantastic.
journey.
I just want you to go on and on.
And the
what's
ratings
really
for
frightening-
Sky News have gone through the roof as a result of this.
What's really frightening is Tim Farron is now the longest-serving leader of the mainstream party. I mean, how the hell did that happen?
But we don't need all of this up in the
You
air
do. It's
stuff.
great.
Oh, it's
No.
fun.
It's
Come on,
fantastic.
Michelle.
Come on, we've done Brexit.
Business likes uncertainty.
Everything's-
The business likes certainty. The press
Media
love
love
uncertainty. And the media need uncertainty.
I think 2 things are interesting. First of all, if you look at the top 6 now in her cabinet, 4 of them went to state schools.
Yeah.
And that is a
That's
big
a
change.
big
Yeah.
change.
That is a
Yeah.
change. You know,
That's
the
a
days of the
statement.
old Etonians.
Yeah.
Was it Nadine
Sorry about
Morris
Boris,
who said
but, you know,
the posh boys had gone? Was that
Yes.
her yesterday, saying that the old posh boys have
Oh,
gone?
I doubt that she would say
No,
that.
but she implied it in that
it was.
speech.
Yeah.
But so the top 4 of the top 6 in that cabinet are now state school kids,
That's great.
That's great.
which I think is and her agenda clearly when she outlined it.
She
as
went
you
to
say-
Tunbridge Grammar, didn't she?
Yes.
You,
Yes, they all
you
went to
count
grammar
that as a echt state school, though.
Yes,
Yeah?
it was a state
Of course,
school.
if we talk about their levels of education, there is one old Etonian still there. Rachel, what have you said to Boris?
Oh, no, Nick. This is my week off.
No, it's not. You're sitting there right now.
No,
What have you
it's
said
my
to
week
Boris?
off. Congratulations,
It's
of
fantastic,
course.
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely
Were you
wonderful.
surprised?
I think everybody was
bet he
surprised.
was.
Yeah, he was very surprised. Yeah.
Sensational news, though, isn't it? What's his gift, you suppose? What does he bring
I
to
think
the
it's
role of Foreign Secretary?
indestructibility.
He is indestructible.
Anyway, yeah, so we don't want any more elections. We've all got what we want.
No, we haven't.
we
No, we haven't.
None of us have
We
got
want
what
an
we want.
election within 2 years. We haven't
listen,
got what we want. No, we have
a
not.
period of calm, I think,
Sure.
will be welcome.
Yes,
even
which
for
we
you,
agree
Nick.
with.
Sure.
Which we agree with.
But-
You
but
yeah.
a
can't take the
period is how long?
adrenaline. What?
Over
A
the
period is how long?
over
A
the
year,
weekend.
18 months?
Just over the weekend, I was
And after that, she would have to get a
Yes.
bigger majority.
Yeah. And a mandate from
Depends
the people.
how Brexit goes as well. It also
Well,
depends
Well, that's
on
the
whether
other
we go
interesting
into
thing about her
recession.
cabinet. She's given the job
To all the
of Brexit to the
Brexiteers. Yeah. Good
Brexiteers
for
and said,
her.
guys, you wanted it, you try and sort it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a
I love it.
big challenge for Sir Liam Fox and David Davis, particularly.
Do you think it's
You
a
sorted
stitch
it.
up?
No, I'm not that Machiavellian. I think genuinely she said, you are the people who campaign for it. You've got to
You
try and
won it.
sort this.
Yeah,
This is
you won
difficult.
it, yeah.
It's your
This is
bad.
going to be
It's your
really
bad.
difficult stuff.
Yeah.
Right,
Good
and
for
on that
her.
note, if I promised you one thing and then I just did something else, you'd be hacked off with me. If I sold you something that was in fact something else, you'd want a refund. And if you'd married me, only to discover I'd been telling serious lies, you'd likely want a divorce. And all rightly so. So how then is it possible that our politicians are able to make exaggerated claims in order to secure our votes and are seemingly not held to account? Do you remember these promises?
We made a promise before the election that we would vote against any rise in fees under any circumstances. But that was a mistake.
Net migration to this country will be in the order of tens of thousands each year, not the hundreds of thousands every year that we've seen over the last decade.
every week we send actually more than £350 million to Brussels.
We send it. So hang on, so it comes out of a bank account in Britain and goes to Brussels.
Not only are politicians not held to account, but these claims are repeated over and over again in the media, and they have serious consequences. I'm fed up of it. Until 1999, parts of political advertising was governed by the Advertising Standards Authority, and then it stopped. And what a surprise, politicians didn't act on the recommendation to replace it. I want to see an independent body or code immediately set up to govern what politicians can promise across all mediums. I want it to be agile, I want it to be quick to act, and I want it to have real consequences.
I mean, the problem with politics is that we require them to have solutions to everything. And there aren't solutions to everything. And any politician who stands up and says, I don't know the answer to that, I mean, look, you can see him laughing. He would kill him on his radio show if he said, I don't know the answer to that.
Don't ask me, Gov.
Yeah, well, how do you think I know? Therefore, we have created a political system in which you have to have answers to everything without having the first clue about how to do it.
But that's different to saying something that's not...
Nick Clegg, in that clip, when he was talking about tuition fees, Nick Clegg didn't intend to introduce tuition fees. He ended up in a coalition government with the Tories.
He did.
Who wanted to push through tuition fees, and he didn't fight against it. Enough would be my argument. But these things are inevitable in politics.
But it's not inevitable to say, I'm going to reduce immigration, net migration to tens of thousands when you can't.
It's perfectly valid to say, I want to introduce.
Yeah, that's my intention.
It's my intention.
That wasn't a lie, that was clumsy.
Yeah.
That was his ambition. In fact, he should have thought, particularly in the position that he then enjoyed, he should have realised, hang on, I can't do that because of the current agreement that we have with the European Union.
Yeah.
So it is my... I think to accuse them, that's not a lie.
So see,
that's
if you
just
like my third example more, the 350 million. That is something that is not accurate. It's not accurate. So it gets told, and then it gets reproduced and reproduced and reproduced by all the media, and people believe that and vote off the back of that, and there is no consequences. There are no consequences to that. And I feel that is fundamentally wrong. And as I was saying before, the Advertising Standards Authority, they did used to govern some political advertising. It stopped because the major parties couldn't agree what should be covered and what shouldn't be covered.
I'm sure politicians lied in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s.
But that's not acceptable, though.
And even the 1900s when he was around.
I think this is very interesting,
It is.
what Michelle's brought up, because
It's a great point.
I think there was that huge sense after the referendum that a lot of the things said on both sides turned out... Well, there was Project Fear. And then there was all the things like the 350...
No, again.
Well, I'm
God's
not,
sake.
but I'm just saying...
I think it would be a good idea to have an IPSO or an Ofcom equivalent.
It's not only a good idea, it's essential. You have to govern these promises.
I think these things have to pass the smell test before they are unleashed on the public and then influence the direction of history.
But then we as the media have got to... The media has got to begin to accept that politicians don't have solutions to all problems. And unfortunately, we don't. And therefore... I mean, you go back to the Blair days when people used to literally make up the initiative on the way to the studio because they had to have an answer to something. And we get actually the politicians that we and the public deserve, right? We created this, that they have got... The only person I ever remember in my lifetime standing up was Margaret Thatcher when she first got elected and said, well, we can't do everything. It's not possible. And at long last she thought, no, I wasn't a Thatcherite in any way, but at least she said it. Yeah. Now, after a couple of years, it disappeared and she didn't say it again.
So do you disagree with me? Are you telling me you don't agree with me, that you think there needs to be this code that...
I think on published stuff...
party election broadcasts, should they be run
published
past
stuff,
something?
I think there's no... But in the end, what politicians talk about is aspiration. And they said, the society we want...
That's quite true, actually. The manifesto, the Tory manifesto, which said we will have a referendum, we had a referendum, and now we are committed to enacting the manifesto. So actually, they do have direct consequences in government.
Well, yes, but of course the referendum was created to
appease the
right wing of the or certain wing of the Conservative wing.
But the reason we had it was in the manifesto, which often people say, not worth the paper they're written on.
But events change. As you were saying, and I think you have to be aware of this, Michelle, and Greg's touched on this. we could be elected now if we formed a government, and 5 years, halfway through, things change, and we have to change our suddenly we find there's no money, suddenly we find whatever it might be.
I am very right.
Michelle, I think I agree with you. What Michelle is saying is if there is some sort of body, then obviously politicians will start being a little bit more honest and maybe a bit more transparent, which then will influence the press.
Maybe that
all
will be
of
your
them
next
will
gig,
be.
Off-poll.
Yeah.
Where you regulate.
Would you like to regulate politicians? Because you think of a worse job.
Yeah. Right, let me be
Makes
clear.
the FA look attractive.
Your worst job, you're doing it right now, mate.
Right, I do not. Right, I understand that things change, and I understand massively that you need to be agile and be responding to what's going on around you, and you cannot just be stubborn and go, this is what I said, so it's what I'm going to do. You have to be fluid and agile.
Flexible, yeah.
But that is very, very different to knowingly standing up and, in order to canvass a vote, telling something that is not true or not accurate or misleading.
A barefaced lie, like
and
the 350 million.
Yeah, and in 1999, when the ASA stopped governing this,
they
made a recommendation.
It was a net. It was a gross
lie.
figure, but there was a net figure as well.
But the ASA made a recommendation that there had to be this independent body set up to do it. In 2003, the Electoral Commission again did a consultation and said there needs to be a body. That was recommended to government. It wasn't acted on. Why?
Look,
I agree
June will ring Theresa after we go off air. She will sort it out. It will be done.
In the last week of the referendum campaign, the BBC actually did a fact check for and actually was rather good. They actually went through both sides and said, "This is what you said," and that isn't
when
what
was this?
true.
When did this
in
happen?
the last week of the referendum, I think the BBC suddenly panicked and realised that their coverage had been so dull.
Do you know, June, you're the sort of woman that if I was married to you and I got back late from the pub one night with some mates in November 2012, you would never, ever, ever let it go, would you? It is. You just won't let this go.
So what did your? I remember 2012. What did your last two wives complain about?
I never got back from the pub. That's what we have to do.
Can I just be absolutely clear? Because I'm surrounded by people in the media, and you're all telling me that you do not think that there should be an... Okay, so with the exception of June, you three are telling me you do not agree that there should be governed...
Too
that
utopian.
These people...
It's too utopian. I think you're taking a too simple view.
No.
I mean, I appreciate and I understand what's driving it, but in practical terms, I've got to say no. I don't think it can work.
I find that astonishing.
Well, you see, are you talking about what is published, or are you talking about what they're saying in an interview? And they're two very different things. If you're talking about what's published, there's an argument for that. I don't think there's an argument for anything in an interview or in the knock-around of politics.
I'm saying if you make a claim and you know it's not true, so I'll stick with the 350 just to keep it simple. If you make a claim that you know it is not true, you must be held to account for that. But at the time, not like 6 months later, at the time, you must be held to account. The media must be held to account if they broadcast and repeat.
Can I say one thing?
Briefly.
It's like you when you're not back from the pub. You'll be held to account 6 months later.
I will be with you. Here's a promise we are going to keep. We'll be back in just a moment, and it'll be my turn next. And I'm telling the un-PC truth that being a parent does make a difference. Coming up, I'm going to be giving a parenting class, but you know what it's like if you're in a big, tough job and you finally reach the end of the road. Well, it's quite a relief to get away, isn't it? Particularly if you're an outgoing Prime Minister. Let's look at him in action.
Thank you very much. Right.
I'm surprised he didn't do one of those kicks when he kicks his heels together as well.
He probably did when he closed the door.
To copy the Prime Minister. Right. I have to ask you, listeners to my radio show, we had a vote as to what we thought he was humming. In second place was The Simpsons. In first place was The Great Escape, which could possibly be true. Rachel, did you pick up anything from that, or it could just be anything? Any set of notes? Not quite sure.
Just a random tune.
He went do.
Clearly happy to go, Greg.
I think he was just happy.
Yeah.
I think he, all the pressure for all those years, and suddenly he thought, I'm free.
And also, what a graceful exit. I mean, he's the Vanity Fair dressed in Savile Row suit version of a Prime Minister, and I think, you know, he's going to be missed.
Family.
And he can spend more time, of course, with his children, which leads me on to this. Let's get one thing straight. Being a parent doesn't make you a better or more able person by right. Speaking as a father, what I think it can do, though, is help focus in crystal clear vision what your life should be about. I'm blessed. I had superb parents, and the best job I have ever had, or will ever have, is being a dad to my 2 sons. Now, while Andrea Leadsom's comments about Theresa May being childless were heartless and cold, and almost certainly did for her chances to ever win the race to lead the Conservatives, there can be no doubt becoming a dad or a mum opens your eyes to so much that it would be simply impossible to comprehend otherwise. When your child goes into hospital for an operation, we all mutter or say out loud prayers offering anything in exchange for a safe outcome. I know I have. Andy Murray said immediately after winning at Wimbledon that being a father brought him determination and focus, and he's right. You're not a lesser person if you don't have any children, just less rounded.
Well, when you're pregnant, you're certainly rounded.
Nice
more
line.
rounded.
Nice
But I think that if somebody ever starts a sentence or an argument as a mother or speaking as a mum, they've lost the argument. Because I just don't think that is the determining factor on whether you're a competent human being able to do a job. And the thing that annoys me about this subject hugely is that men are never analysed in terms of whether they have procreated, whether they have brought new life into the world. It's irrelevant. But when it's a woman in the public eye, the first thing everyone talks about is whether she's got kids. And so, yes, being a mother or a father does bring you a perspective. It also makes you incredibly tired.
Has your life been enriched by being a mum?
Of course it's been enriched. It's also been exhausted, impoverished.
Of course.
And, you know, in lots of ways. Shredded.
And exhilarated. And your heart has been torn. And you've had the darkest nights possible. Please God, your children haven't been ill. But
this does not affect my ability to do a job.
Do you remember what I said right at the top?
Yeah, that's what
I said right at the top. It doesn't make you a better person by... But it does broaden your life experiences. Of course it does. Let's just look at what Andrea Leadsom... It's quite important. Hold on, come back. Let's just take a look. We're going to show you exactly what Andrea Leadsom said. Here we are. I feel that being a mum means you have a very real stake in the future of our country, a tangible stake. She, talking of Theresa May, possibly has nieces, nephews, but I have children who are going to have children. By the way, how does she know that? Who will directly be a part of what happens next. Clumsy and wrong. Clumsy and wrong.
Can I just make one point? If you have children, and I have 3 children, I think actually it means that you are invested in their future, sometimes at the expense of other people's children.
That's a great
For
point.
example, you want to send them to private school. You want them to get a train. You can pay for them to have an internship in a posh company, but at the expense of those who can't afford a private education and don't have access to the bank of mum and dad. So actually, parents are not the ones who are completely invested in the future of all children.
I really want to come to June because I think our marriage might be back on. I've actually seen you nod for the first time. I think you're nodding. I've hit on something.
Yeah, look, where's my ring? I actually agree with you on this one. I'm not a parent. I'm not a mother. I hope to be one day. And I think being a parent does make you more rounded. It does. You know, my sister has children, and you know what she says in terms of how it's opened her heart. It's opened her heart in a way that it didn't before having kids. So, for sure, I agree. But what I don't agree with was Andrea Leadsom's comment, which I thought was so below the belt. And she knows that Theresa May did want children. It didn't happen. And, sorry, to say that 20% of the population do not have a stake in the country because they don't have children is just absurd.
I agree. Greg?
I thought it was calculated.
It was.
I think she was...
Machiavelli again over it.
Yeah, it's old Machiavelli going back in. I
Mean-spirited.
thought she was going into this election, and I think she was trying to appeal to a certain sort of woman
She was speaking to the Shires.
In the Shires and the Conservative Party.
Do you really?
Yes, I do. Of a certain, and it was, and I think it rebounded on her appallingly.
Do you think that cost her?
Yes,
without doubt.
And rightfully so.
Well, I think she disintegrated over days, didn't she? Yeah. I mean, she's really. You start by showing that you hadn't done all the things you claimed you'd done on your CV. Well. Let's have a look at all your CVs and see if they're that accurate. But if you add that to what happened and then to this, I think what you saw was somebody disintegrating as you suddenly realised she was a disaster.
Well, you do see in elections when there's a childless woman against a woman, a mother, the childless woman, the mother always somehow lets it be known that the mother is appropriated.
I don't know how many kids. How many? You have 2 or 3?
4.
4. I'm so sorry. 4. You've been busy. How's your life been enriched by being a dad?
Well,
I was young when I went in and I was old when I came out. That's what I always think about having children. When I left the BBC, I said to the Lord, I'm now going to spend more... I use the old politician line, I'm going to spend more time with my family. And what I discovered is that my family didn't want to spend that much time with me. And there is something... No, it's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, of course.
And I wish But I don't think it's a disaster in life if you don't have children.
Of course not.
No. I just think it's a different experience. And I think she made well, as I say, I think it was a calculated statement that backfired badly on her.
Make you a better person?
Well, I think your point's a bit is right. That actually the danger is...
You become a tigress for your own kids.
You become so much for your own kids that, does it make you a better person?
Andy Murray said it helped him win Wimbledon on the
But
weekend.
that's different to being a leader.
No, I don't understand. I think we're stating the obvious. We're sitting here and saying when you've got children, you have a different perspective on life. Yeah, well, of course you do, because you've got children. You've been through a different experience. But if you travel the world, you have a different perspective on life. If you have a serious illness which you recover from, you have a different perspective on life.
You're right,
I'm not really sure what's
I shouldn't have
the
said better person, I should have said better sportsman or sportswoman or better businessman
I know,
or
but
businessman.
where were the headlines saying, as a dad, it's because I was a dad that I won Wimbledon?
No, but
see, if a mother had said...
Excuse me, page 3 of the Daily Telegraph, the whole page was devoted to the fact that it was the determination, I've got it there, that having his child...
Nobody criticised him, did because it wasn't as if he was saying
won Wimbledon
he was better.
3 years ago.
Yeah, but he says he's more focused
He
now.
didn't win Wimbledon because he's just had a child.
So it was nothing to do with the fact that Djokovic got knocked out in the first round.
I think we can also bring you... let's see what Andy Murray actually said. I think we've got that as well.
Being a father doesn't necessarily make you a better tennis player, but it's given me, again, extra motivation to work hard and train and make myself a better tennis player. I didn't just become a better tennis player after having a child. I need to, still put in all of the hours of work, and, she's given me a bit of extra motivation to do that for sure.
Can I just say, if that's what he's like when he's happy, I don't want to... I'm so pleased he won, but oh boy, man alive, what would it be like if he lost?
But the key for me in this is about motivation. I believe that if you want to succeed and achieve things, you've got to have something inside you that drives you. I always say you've got to know your why. Why am I doing this? Why do I want this? Why am I going to keep going when it's getting really hard? And your why, your motivation can be anything. Of course, children would be a part of that.
So you agree, it could be?
Of course it could be children, but it could be a million other things. I don't have children. Mainly because I've not yet found a decent enough man, but when I do, I would love to have children.
Right.
But when I do have those children... Oh, is he?
No, you're the single.
But when I have children, of course that will give me an added spare, but not to the detriment of anything else, or it wouldn't make me better than anybody else either. I just think we're stating the obvious, and I don't really get the point.
But that's not what Nick is saying. He's saying it makes you more rounded, and I think it does. And
so do a lot of things. I'm not less rounded because I don't have a kid. I've travelled the world. That's made me rounded on one side.
But there's experiences and emotions and sensations
that are triggered
currently,
that
and I wish you nothing but success, and I'm sure you will be a parent if you want to be.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like. Watching your son or daughter going down for surgery, having anaesthetic, I cannot tell you the pain that you have. And I would trade a limb, and I mean it.
Yeah.
I would trade a limb.
No, I can
If I'm told,
I
would just say, which one do you want?
I mean, there is something about when you have kids... Up to that moment you have your first child, by and large in life you've done what you want, just for you. And suddenly there is this thing that just demands of you. And because you've got this irrational relationship with it, that is irrational, it's just love, it changes your life. But I don't think that's anything to do with being the Prime Minister.
No,
we agree with that.
Dots in my head. I don't get it, because I'm not disputing if you have a child that it's poorly, it breaks your heart. I don't dispute that, but I don't know what it's got to do with being a prime minister or a tennis player
Coming back to my line about the Tory shires, I always remember a story that somebody in the South told me from the Conservative Party who said that Margaret Thatcher came to want to get the Conservative nomination for that constituency, and she didn't get it. And she didn't get it because a Tory woman stood up at the front when she was out of the room and said, "That woman is a bad mother."
Yes,
and now
true.
I think that's still there in certain sections of the Conservative Party.
It is.
I think we have to realise that people who don't have children will probably have found this whole discussion deeply offensive. The idea that
I don't have
people
children.
who've got children have got a future in the stake of this country,
Madness.
and they don't.
Yeah, absolute madness.
That's ridiculous.
And back to
statement.
Rachel's point, it's always that pressure is always put on women. No one says that about a man who doesn't have a child.
No.
So, yeah.
But I recall finishing the introduction by saying just because it doesn't make you a lesser person. I actually said it. It certainly doesn't. It just makes you less rounded until you came up with your X and Y because of the experiences and emotions you will enjoy and endure. You'll do both as a mum or a dad. That's the truth of the matter, isn't it?
But we all should want a stake in this country. We all should want the best for the country and everyone that lives in it. Yeah, exactly. And we have that with children, without children, single, married, who cares?
Nieces or nephews.
Those two. Anyway, I'm after the break and I've got something to show you. Now, who do you think this might be? Young people. They were the future once. We now know that the voter turnout among 18 to 24-year-olds in the EU referendum was double what was initially reported. It's thought that more than 70% of them chose to remain. But as usual, young people ended up on the losing side. As part of Generation X, I'm actually old enough to remember when being young was a reason for optimism. What's amazing is despite the fact that all of us, including everyone at this table, have been part of this minority group, some of us more recently than others, may I add. Great pictures, by the way. Today, young people are one of the most marginalised groups in society. They're discriminated against and treated even worse than women or ethnic minorities. It's illegal to pay someone less money for the same job because of their gender or race, yet a young person considers themselves lucky to be employed, let alone expect to be paid the same as an older colleague. It's time to end the discrimination, the same way we've dealt with it for other groups. We need quotas, forcing companies to employ young people at entry-level jobs, but also at board level, so they're involved in the decisions being made about their future.
Well, the first thing is those pictures. Greg Dyke, since when did you look like Rasputin?
I thought that was Fleetwood. I thought it was someone in a
I think I looked older then than I do now, really. That was 40 years ago.
Was it Mick Fleetwood?
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
I know. Yes. Well, it was. Did you not have a youth then, Nick?
In a suit.
And Nick, before you start, can we see yours again?
Yeah, there we go.
I think you look like a young Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah, you look like Christopher Hitchens.
I thought you were going to say Christopher Biggins.
No. You look like the Hitch.
There we go.
I've always had a soft spot for the Hitch.
Yeah, I love the Hitch.
Those were the...
I'm sorry, go on.
I thought, hello, this is going to be a really happy pledge because I'm kind of agreeing with Ms Sarpong, but as I said once before, no, Ms Sarpong has gone totally wrong. And let me tell you what, you're okay, sort of, board level. Have you gone raving mad?
No, I haven't.
This is a generation who
We can't even get women in boards.
Exactly. I want diversity in boards in general.
They can't even get down to Tesco or Asda or Sainsbury's on time. You now want them sitting, having executive power decisions. Is you really that tough to be young in this country? No, it's not. It's fantastic. There are great opportunities out there, and I would argue, and I'm delighted you brought up that more voted, and I'm delighted that more voted, and I think it's really important that we share that statistic. But much as with life, it is therefore the taking. And while we should, if there are disadvantaged groups, people with a certain ethnicity, people with a certain faith, people with mental health issues, your average young person, life is there for the taking. Get out and grab it, and you'll have a ball.
But don't you think where young people are concerned, we're only ever talking about them when they're doing something bad.
No.
You know? Oh, no, yes, we are.
Look at the kids we celebrated at 2012 and hopefully 2016.
Yeah, well, in 2016, we're looking at kids that are rioting. We're not looking at kids that are doing well.
We celebrated the Olympic team, and they're mostly young people. Some of them are very, very young people.
And also,
of course we celebrate
back to the referendum, if we had allowed 16 to 18-year-olds, we would have allowed 16 to 17-year-olds to vote, we would have had another 1.6 million people that could have participated.
If we're going to go back to the referendum, let me just have a quick dig at you two, because do you remember 2 weeks ago, you gave young people a hard time for not turning out?
All of us, old or young or in the middle, had a choice and an opportunity to vote. The older people could be bothered to do so. The younger people could not be asked. If you don't want your future ruined, get off your backside, get your pen or your pencil, get yourself down to the voting booth and make a difference. It's not an entitlement that you have this future. You have to work for it and you have to make it happen.
Michelle,
I love that girl. Who is she? I tell you.
Certainly provocative.
Let's prove that they had
how do you know
the figures now. Well, the figures.
No.
Well, the figures then were dubious, and the figures now are a bit better, and the polls suggest
36%. Right. Now we think it was 64%. But then the oldies, 90%.
I know.
Don't forget. How do you know? You said your statement was, "We know that this was inaccurate and that this was double." How do you know that it was
according
double?
to the LSE?
Exactly. I'm not being funny, right? So many young people.
You don't like experts. You can join Michael Gove.
So many young people have come out and said that they're against Brexit. So, if the LSE or if anyone wanders into a room of young people after the event and says to them, I think it was 2,000 people that they asked, 2,000 young people, did you vote and how did you vote? I'm sorry, but I'm not sure that all of them would sit there and be strictly honest. No, don't. What do you mean? Come on. They wouldn't sit there and they go, yeah, I voted, and yes, I voted Remain. We don't know what they did and what they didn't.
Actually, I would love to be their age today. Because if you look at the... I mean, what's happening...
Yes. Last week, you were saying the opposite.
No, I'm all for...
2 weeks ago, you were saying the exact
what I was
opposite.
saying was I think that we give too much to old people in this country. We need to give something more to young people. But actually, today, for a lot of young people, what used to be you had to do at 22, you now do at 32. So the 20s have become a wonderfully elongated period of youth. Because by and large, women don't have kids till they're 30, till they're over 30s now. Most of them. Not the I think the average is now over 30.
It is.
And what you see is people having a wonderful life for 10 years before they have to take and jobs. I mean, when I left school, I got a job and got sacked, and they said the pressure was to find another job and get a
life,
career.
really, didn't it? A job and getting sacked, Greg.
It does. I have done it on many occasions.
Greg, if we look at Parliament, the average age of Parliament is 50.
Sure.
You know, how can that
very
be?
young, wouldn't you say?
Well, that's very young. I can tell you how it can be, because they're not choosing to engage, June. You talked
That's
about,
not true.
You talked about putting quotas, forcing people to hire young people.
The really interesting thing is how few by-elections there are anymore. Why? Because people in Parliament...
Bed blockers.
They live, they live longer. They live longer, and you can stay there forever.
But isn't it, it's 54% of 16 to 24-year-olds, I think, that are registered to vote. Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I did some research, and that's what I learned through that research, 54%. Now, what you do, when you've got a group that are not represented...
How did 64% vote in the referendum, then?
I don't know. This is, I'm talking about the people that have registered to vote. So, obviously, this is a percentage.
Right,
and the reality is we don't know how many people, young or old or whatever, voted, because we don't track those figures. So, anything we have will only be guesswork. But my point is... If you think that somebody is unrepresented, whether it's women, young people, whatever, you don't fix that by forcing the representation of that group.
Sometimes you have
to. What you do...
I'm in favour of affirmative
What you do...
action.
I hate
there are
quotas.
many incidences where it's worked.
Isn't there a danger then you only got the job because you're black, or you got the job because you're a kid, or you got the job because you're a woman?
Do you genuinely believe without all women shortlists?
I thought they were a great idea.
You wouldn't have had... You'd have as many women as you've got now. It changed.
It changes.
It changed
you
politics.
need them.
Well, look at the state your party's in now. You're advocating that?
That's because of the men. That's not because of the women.
Well, sorry, Angela Eagle? I thought
she's helping to fix it. I think
young people leave school at the moment. They leave school as consumers. They're engaged in music, clothes, all the rest of it. They need to be leaving school as engaged citizens. They need to understand... Hold on, let me finish. They need to understand they need to be registering to vote. They can influence things, but they have to lift up off their chair and they have to do it in real world, not in social media world. And you change
Michelle,
the representation
I'm going to interrupt
with
you.
engagement,
I'm
not
going to
with
interrupt
rules.
you because it's been a tumultuous week, a time of fast change and power to the people. So what do politicians from all sides have in common? Their punk credentials, of course.
Hey, ho, let's go. Hey, ho, let's go. We're going through a hard time. The kids are losing their minds. Now we're gonna resign. Brexit bomb. So we're hiding in the back seat. Generating steam heat. Because the job isn't complete. Brexit bomb. Hey, ho, let go. Stab me in the back now. What they want, I don't know. We're all revved up and want you to go.
Not bad, eh?
I don't think it's
Last
so much...
time we see David Cameron in one of those.
I don't think it's so much the Brexit bop. I think with Boris it's the Brexit blonde mop. Which is really cool when you think about it. Yeah.
I know.
I'm so glad we've got some Beastie Girls as well as the Beastie Boys in Cabinet.
Yes.
Yes. About time. Yeah. About time. Anyway, that's it from us. Do send us a tweet to say which one of us has been talking sense or not. And if there's a topic you think we should be giving the pledge treatment to. More Straight Talking next week.
Hi guys, I'm looking forward to coming back next Thursday with a hot topic that's sure to ruffle a few feathers. See you then!
I'm back, I've had a few weeks off and I'm very excited for an all-female panel with the only man being Nick Ferrari on next week's show. A little bit like The Country, it's going to be run by women.